Hey y'all, Martin and Tucker in the studio today making a loaded baked potato pizza. This is a very crisp, very tender dough that we're topping with potatoes and onions and bacon and sour cream and chives and a little bit of rosemary and a little bit of red pepper flakes. A delicious, delicious recipe. Come along. Okay, so let's mix this dough. We're gonna use some bread flour today. You'll remember that I like that because it has that great strength, right? And we're gonna put a lot of toppings on top of this dough, and so it's great to have this strong base. So I'm gonna start with some bread flour. 360 grams, about 3 cups. And as always today, I'm using the scale, right? The scale is my best friend for accuracy. So bread flour in the bowl, yeast, I've got some salt, I've got some olive oil, 270 grams of water, everything in, and just stir to combine. Once I feel like I've got it mostly combined, and I'm kind of using the dough to clean the sides of the bowl a little bit, and then I'll switch to my flexible scraper, scrape down the sides of the bowl, and I might just sort of give it just a second of pressing and sort of moving it around just to make sure that I have it nice and homogeneous. And then I'm gonna put it into a tub. You don't have to do that. You could leave it in the bowl for the rise. That would be fine. I like these containers because they come with lids and it's easy to just sort of snap the lid on and be done with it. I'll put a little bit of oil in here so that it'll release, and then I'll dump my dough in. So that's the mix. There's no kneading. We're just gonna let time do the work and develop that strength and extensibility for us that we want, right? So into the container, put a lid on, put it in a nice comfy spot, and come back in 15 minutes for a bowl fold. Let's fold the dough.
Look right there to that.
So, this recipe wasn't mixed in a stand mixer, it wasn't kneaded, none of that stuff. We're using time to develop strength, time plus the addition of folds. This is our first fold, first of 2 folds. We call this a bowl fold because it literally happens in the bowl. I'm gonna take a wet hand and reach in. And now let me show you something. Just in that 15 minutes, that rest period, the dough is beginning to strengthen without us doing anything. That's partly due to the type of flour that we're using. We're using a really good, slightly higher protein flour, right? Bread flour. It's also due to the just natural characteristics of wheat. When it rests, it gains strength. Look at this. Window pane. Very little effort required for gluten development, right? Okay, but let's add just a little bit of action to it. I'm gonna give a bowl fold with a wet hand, working my way around the dough, folding from the outside to the inside. And when I complete this first fold, you're gonna notice how the dough has this almost shiny aspect to it. Partly that's because there's olive oil in there, but it's also that as the dough gains strength, it smooths out, right? Okay, we'll come back in 15, and we'll do it again, right here, live on television. Okay, fold number 2. I can see that the dough has retained the degree to which it smoothed out the first time and it's ready for a second one. I can see some signs of activity in here. Dough looks beautiful. We're gonna give it one more bowl fold. So same as the first, and look how beautiful it is. I mean, that's a perfect dough. Nice and strong, but soft. It's still supple, right? A little bit of olive oil in there for tenderness and also flavor. So I'm just gonna go around the dough one time, stretching and pressing into the center, and then I'll just invert it. And that's it. Now we'll let it rise hour to an hour and a half. Put it in a nice comfy spot. You got our handy lid here in this beautiful container. I'll see you soon. Get yourself ready for pizza. Okay, let's shape these pizzas. Now, I'm gonna put this into a 13 by 18 pan. This is a half sheet tray, right? In the recipe, which is down there in the link below, just like scroll down there and look, you'll see that recipe right below us, right? So in the recipe, there are some other options for pans or iterations of how you can sort of bake this, right? So I'm gonna use the full size today, which is the 13 by 18, and I'm gonna start with a little bit of olive oil in the pan. And olive oil is here for a couple reasons, right? It's going to keep the dough from sticking. It's also going to add flavor. And it's also going to help the dough crisp as it bakes, right? This is actually going to improve not only flavor and function, but also texture. Look at this happy dough, right? Very happy dough. Full of air, nice and relaxed. The reason I like it in this container is that I've oiled it so that it will release more easily. And the reason that that helps the pizza is that I will deform it less as I get it into the pan, right? I'll retain some of that lightness that's in the dough right now. So, should just come out of this container real nicely with just a little bit of encouragement. And then I'm going to start getting it into place. We're going to stretch this twice. So the first one, I'm going to make a pass and I'm just going to try and get it going in the direction that we want, right? And then I'm going to let it rest a little bit and then I'll come back and do a second press. If you want, in addition to pressing, you can gently just lift and sort of elongate like that. Just gently stretching into the form. There will be a point where the dough says, you know what, that's about all we got today, right now, in terms of extensibility, the ability for the dough to stretch without retracting. So I'll sort of get it close, and then we'll come back in a little bit. I don't want to press on it too much. So now we'll give it half an hour, we'll come back. Make sure you cover that. Take a second sheet tray and just invert it on top. That's a good trick. Okay, we'll see you in half an hour. Chill out. Okay, so after about half an hour or so, we're ready to finish stretching this thing. And listen, pizza is forgiving. It's super forgiving, right? You don't necessarily need to set your timer and then worry if you're going to be 5 minutes late or even 15 minutes late. It's okay if it hangs out. We've got all this beautiful strength in the dough itself. It can take a nice long bit of time. Go for a walk around the block. Don't be too nervous or fretful about that, okay? It's forgiving and it will sort of meet you where you are in terms of your schedule, right? And so this has had about half an hour, roughly. I don't know. I honestly didn't set a timer. I just know that it's been about half an hour. Okay, beautiful. That's about it. Now we're going to cover it and let it rest for a little bit longer, and then we'll top it. And the next rest phase is just to give that dough a little bit more of an opportunity to rise some, and it'll be a little bit lighter when we go to bake it. So, put the lid back on, set it aside. This is a good time to start preparing your toppings if you haven't messed with that yet. So get those toppings going and then you'll be ready to bake. Let's make this topping. So thinly sliced potatoes. If you have a mandolin, you can do that. Or if you just have a knife, just try and be as thin as possible. It's going to help with the texture, okay? So potatoes, onions, again, thin, pretty thin. Switch into a bigger bowl. We need a lot of toppings. It's loaded baked potato pizza. If it fit in this small bowl, wouldn't be the recipe. Okay, so just toss them to combine. Okay, minced rosemary, boop. Chili flakes. If you like extra chili, use it. If you don't, then skip it, no big deal. Salt and olive oil. And this is actually one of my favorite things about this recipe is that the degree to which the potatoes are seasoned, just the amount of intention, right? You could just put salt and pepper and that'd be fine, but I like that we have some aromatics in here. I love that we have a little bit of heat too. Man, it smells good. This would just be good like fried in a pan with some eggs. Okay, that's good. Now let's get the dough. Okay. So here's the dough. It's had its little second nappy and it's retracted just a little bit from the edge and that's okay. It's definitely not a cause for concern. I can just gently go in and trying not to compress it too much. This isn't a point where you want to use flat hands. I'm just using the ends of my fingertips to just make sure that it's into the corners a little bit. Now I can add my toppings. And I might make a light pass first just to make sure that I have enough to cover the whole thing. And then I'll go back and fill in some gaps. Boy, it's beautiful, right? Look at this color. Okay, now bacon. This is some thick cut bacon. I've got some Cabot extra sharp. Up here in Vermont, we love our Cabot. All right, so my oven's ready to go. It's preheated to 500 and I've got a baking stone in the oven already, right? It's ripping hot, it's ready to receive this pizza. Before I put it in, I'm gonna lower it to 450 so that it's not quite as hot, and then we're gonna bake for about 25 to 30 minutes. And then it's like pizza party time. Okay, let's go. Damn, look at that. Whoop. You like that trick? We should have a moment of silence because that is gorgeous. Like literally, that's gorgeous. When it comes out, it should be nice and golden like that, right? The crust on the bottom should be beautiful. Look at that thing. Man, oh man, it's too hot to touch, but we'll get a shot of that in a minute. So when it comes out, you want to get it out of the pan, right? If you leave it in the pan, it will continue to release moisture and it will soften that crust. And we've worked pretty hard to get this crust nice and crispy. You know, we baked it on a stone, we had olive oil in the pan, all of those things. Beautiful. We're going to give it a minute and then we're going to top and cut. Crispy. If you can hold it up like that, that means crispy. Is it gorgeous on the bottom or what? What? Look at that. So, some sour cream, thinned just a little bit, right? And you know, we have an amount on the recipe, but if you're a big sour cream fan, like I'm that person who, after they've gotten whatever they need out of the container of sour cream, I always have an extra spoonful just for myself. I like sour cream a lot, so. And then some chives, because they're beautiful. If you get them on here while this pizza is still warm, it'll sort of open them up a little bit. Some of that beautiful little bit of hit of onion will come through. I have the best job in the world, literally. I think I do. No complaints at all about being able to enjoy this. I'm on a little bit more sour cream right here on this corner. Just in case I get that bite, I want to make sure that I've covered myself here. So, I'm gonna give it just a minute to cool and then I'm gonna cut it. So what I'm excited about here are these potatoes where it's crispy, right? They're almost like the little potato chip pieces that are sticking up. It's one of my favorite things about this pizza are these little crisp bits, in addition to the fact that the bottom is wicked crisp. Okay, beautiful. And the beauty of this recipe is that you could use this dough for any variety of things. It doesn't have to be a loaded baked potato pizza. It could be a hamburger pizza. You know, you put ground beef, you make your special sauce, you get some shredded lettuce, you do whatever you want, you know. 1,000 ways to make this something delicious. You start with a great dough, finish it with beautiful toppings. It's thin. It's almost like we've got an equal ratio of toppings to dough, right? It's nice and thin. You've got those toppings on top. Beautiful sauce with the sour cream. Onions in there, aromatics, chives, bacon, man. You gotta have one of those timeouts. The percentage of olive oil in the dough gives it this tenderness that you're not gonna believe. It's one of the reasons that it stays so crunchy. Beautiful dough. The sour cream, which sort of gives this saucy sort of decadence a little bit, but then you've got the potatoes and the earthiness. The rosemary comes through a little bit. Bacon, a little bit of heat. Come over here. You just gotta put the camera down and come over here and have some of that. Crust is super crisp, it's tender, and then on top of that, there's some toppings that have an extra level of intention. They're really well thought out, and we have to credit our editorial director, David Tamarkin, for that. And I'm not just sucking up, this is actually really good, right? Pizza with potatoes mixed with onions, well seasoned, baked, they're crisp, and then you finish it with additional sour cream and green onions. I mean, if you don't like that combination, you can find a different one, but the base dough recipe is really what makes this. It's crisp, it's tender. Seriously, one of the best things I've eaten in a long time. Delicious. Loaded baked potato pizza. Thanks for coming along, y'all.